Welcome back to the Finding Flow podcast. I just want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors, the Inflow Wellness Academy, located in Plymouth, Michigan. They offer some amazing services that can help you better achieve these states of flow by optimizing your health and your wellness. Their services include personal training for general population, for athletes, for just about anybody. They offer pain modalities like massage therapy, laser therapy, yoga, durability classes, and they're experts in nutrition and supplementation. So if you're really looking to take your health and your body and your wellness to the next level, that's the place to be. That's the place to seek out. You can find them at inflowacademy.com. You can find them on Facebook and YouTube at Inflow Wellness Academy and on Instagram at Inflow Academy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling.
Everything changes.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Finding Flow podcast here. Kevin Lowers alongside the infamous Benjamin Knapp. What's up, brother?
What's up, brother? Still not touching the ground.
Still not touching the ground, man. Just levitates everywhere he goes. It's kind of freaky.
My legs are my ass is starting to get flabby because I'm not hitting my strides, you know? When you have that heel strike with the long, deliberate stride, you get a glute pump.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it similar to being an astronaut with in zero gravity where your body atrophies because it's not taking, is it the same thing?
Yeah, we're starting to call my ass what they call melted cheese. Where when you sit down, it just kind of covers the whole chair. So it's called melted cheese. But I'll tell you what, it's 75 and sunny when you're a foot above the ground every day.
I mean, you're in the fitness industry, and yet you just float around as your body atrophies. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Correct. Well, isn't it how we used to be quadruped, right? They say we used to walk on all fours, but then we basically exchanged the ability to climb trees and to be that strong to stand upright, and then we developed a mind. So we've become a very clumsy, worthless animal physically, but because we have our mind, we get to actually tell animals what to do and how to live.
Yeah, it is interesting. We went to biped because it allowed us to be better on the ground as we became more nomadic rather than moving through trees, like our ape ancestors. And we needed to be able to see above tall grasses to go hey man, let's kind of assess the lion situation. And when you're a quadruped, you're low to the ground, so you can't really see.
You just get eaten. Someone's eating your ass, and you're just oh, there they are.
It is interesting, man. If you listen into some evolution, I love evolutionary biology, and it's so fascinating to think about all the different ways and reasons to how we somehow evolved to this today, this current form of the body. And there's this, obviously, we'll never, I guess, really know 100% unless we can build time machines and go back in time. But it's kind of fun to play with the different ideas of how one little shift and then that shift, us doing that shift for thousands and thousands of years, and then just our bodies adapting and developing to that shift to dominate that shift. But you're 100% right. We were so low on the food chain, as a physical species, or low as low can get. But with our brains and our intelligence, we've somehow
if we're using them.
If we're using them.
Well, that's kind of that's the exchange of my melty cheese butt is I've expanded my consciousness and my understanding of you humans. And so like the quad to the biped, I've evolved. I
was listening to, I can't think of who it was, but podcast all about artificial intelligence, and they were talking about the way we portray aliens with the really naked gray skinny body and the really large head and eyes and no private parts. Like we're gonna evolve to this point where our brains are so big we no longer ever have to procreate through sex because we developed ways to artificially inseminate just perfectly built people. So it is interesting how that original alien that we would all kind of understand was portrayed, thinking about a deeper meaning to it.
So I guess we won't need anything physical. We'll just be able to think everything.
100%. Create any reality in your own mind at any given time.
So you just never get out of the chair. You're just a head with virtual reality goggles on every day.
It's like WALL-E. You see the movie WALL-E?
Yeah, oh yeah, dude.
It's the greatest,
I talk about
dude.
that. I'm that is an actual futuristic reenactment. I think it's incredible. We're going to be fat, worthless, and completely taken care of.
Imagine how successful Flow 360 would be in that setting.
We wouldn't even have to show up to work. We'd just think about it.
Yeah, I wonder if people would. I wonder if like if we got that bad as they were in Wall-E, where they're like in like the recliners that like levitate. They never leave the recliners.
They just go from blue clothes to red clothes.
Yeah. Imagine trying to get those people motivated to like get off their chairs and do like burpees.
Mental burpees.
Mental burpees.
I'm doing one right now.
All right.
Yeah. So what do you think it was like? Like the very first human that was like, I want to try this standing upright, and then they would like fall backwards and hit their head and everything like that. Like how painful the first, like why would they keep trying it though? You know what I mean? If the first people to try to go from, well, like even gorillas, they can stand up on two legs, but they could never catch you. Like if you tried to run from them and they tried to chase you with two legs, they could never catch you. They fall. They look stupid.
Yeah,
they
their
look
pelvis doesn't sit properly in a biped position, so their range of motion is very poor.
So how many times over and over? Why didn't they just say, "Dude, just fuck it. Like just go back. Just go back."
We were like
knuckling.
We were for sure like incredibly primitive animals. So there was probably like we probably went biped before like conscious thought.
Okay.
Or like to a conscious thought to an extent.
Yeah, we weren't thinking about it. We were just doing it.
No, I just figured like resources, like a lot of theories are that we became more of like a gatherer, and there was more to be gathered on the ground, so it was more advantageous to be like ground animals rather than up in the trees all the time. Obviously safer up in the trees from predators. So that was like, again, you think about like evolutionary like risk and reward. That's how everything's, I guess, built into. So it's like the risk of being on the ground is that, like lions can jack us. But the reward is that there's more food and if we can become more nomadic, we can have, we can travel and we can, occupy more space and occupy more food and eat.
Isn't that why we created weaponry too?
100%.
So, like,
way later.
I don't have to swim in the water to go get the fish. I can throw this spear.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk again, and I'm like an idiot, so I shouldn't be talking about any of this. I just read books of really smart people and relay good information, I guess, and I do my best to not mess it up. So I apologize if I do. But a lot of theories around the brain doubling in size, which is like the biggest mystery ever, and it's like the funnest thing to read about. Like how do we just become these like super conscious entities that like can just manipulate the entire environment to their advantage, right? Well, I guess simultaneously kind of destroying the earth. But the throwing hand, like the ability to like precisely throw a rock, like they've linked that to a lot of like different motor control aspects, and it leads to like the evolution of specific parts of the brain, which could have like jump started that process, right? Stoned ape theory, which is psilocybin mushrooms, kind of occupying the diet of the primitive ape, and we were scavengers, so you'd eat pretty much whatever, and luckily some people before us ate stuff that would kill us, and we learned.
And they go,
yeah, like,
which meant don't eat that.
Yeah. So it's interesting, man. If you read *Sapiens* it's like Naval, I can never say his last name, but it's a chronicle of like man, essentially, from like primitive like single-celled organism to hunter-gatherer to agricultural revolution to industrial revolution to modern technological evolution, and it is just it should be a must-read, I think. Obviously, when you're dealing with like such a large culture of very religious people, which it's not, there's no point in getting in. I guess evolution can take a backseat, but I think because it teaches you so much about what we are, right? Like if you really understand where you came from and like why you have all these like ancient like tendencies, like even let's take food, right? Let's put it in the lens of our own company, which is like health and fitness, right? Like you're designed to eat as much food as you possibly can, as much calorically dense food as you can in a short amount of time as possible, because you might be famished for the next month, right? So if you come across like a big field of blueberries, you're just going to eat until you throw up, and you're just going to try to store as many calories. So you have all these ancient built-in systems that tell you we got to eat all of this. So now you start getting like the highly processed sugars, where it's you would never see that in any form of like naturally occurring food. That's all synthesized and extracted and built into these superfoods that your body like takes in and is just obsessive over because it thinks, okay, we can get so many calories and store these calories, we can prepare for the next famine. Right, and we're still living with these same biological drivers in 2018.
It's leptin, right? It's
leptin and ghrelin, they'll associate like hunger and fullness, but it goes way deeper than that, right? I'm way too stupid to explain it. You can find it in a lot of different good books just about evolutionary diets and things like that, and like why we are the way we are. But it's kind of cool because then I don't want to say it takes the like willpower out of it, but it kind of does, right? Like it's not as simple as like, hey, just stop eating the cake. It's like, no, like your entire physiology thinks that the best option is to eat that entire cake because again, you might never eat again. We haven't caught up. Like, so there's a lot of talk about cultural evolution versus biological evolution, right? So we've way surpassed our biological evolution. Like we're never gonna do that again. Because the shifts happen so fast now that the culture, like the biology can't keep up with the culture. So that's why we're seeing, I think, such a discrepancy in health, right? It's kind of these evolutionary mismatches. Like we're not living the way our bodies are supposed to live in their natural state, I guess, even though I hate all those kind of buzzwords. But it makes a lot of sense, the overconsumption of sugar, directly correlating with diabetes and other chronic illnesses.
We've only been removed from like famine for not that long.
Not long at all.
It's only been like 50 to 57. I mean, people were still starving back in the early 1900s. There was like a famine, and I can't think of where was that? It was either China or Russia, where like they starved out they don't have an exact number. That was the
like,
Ukraines.
It was like upwards of like 70 million people died because they just basically told the farmers that they weren't going to like sustain them anymore. Mm-hmm. And they just left them to perish, and they all just died. But like nobody talked about it. And this is like 40, 50 years ago, man. We're not too far removed from our ape selves, man.
That's actually pretty interesting when you think about the chronological part of it, of just about how because now we talk about consciousness, we talk about mindfulness. So you're right, the brain has advanced thousands of years. Well, the brain has advanced potentially, or it has the capacity to advance thousands of years, with the way we think now compared to the way we thought just 100 years ago. But hormone-wise, they're still writing books about the storage hormones, and you don't have to overeat anymore. Nobody's starving anymore, but yet it's still just as relevant today as it was 500 years ago.
It's tricky, man, and even for all I know, I still fuck up. I
overeat, bro.
I overeat all the time.
Last night, man.
Yeah, I fall prey to foods that are just like, it's almost like your body just knows they're like calorically dense and they're just going to store as fat, and you just need to eat it, right? It's the same thing, I guess, on the positive side of like eating like a steak. Like when you eat like a good steak cooked well, like there's like an energy you get. Same with like you eat a good piece of sockeye salmon.
I was
like
gonna
an
say,
avocado.
Sushi for me, man. Yeah. I can just bend steel.
There's just something about it. You just feel like a superhero after. You know what I mean? So there's these drivers, because again, you think in that context, let's take meat, right? Like red meat. That was a rare occurrence that you actually took down an animal. Like, again, we were these little measly bags of flesh that like luckily we figured out tools, and we were able to hunt bigger game. Right, or
seeing a human jump on a buffalo back trying to bite the spine.
Yeah, not going to happen. Whereas like you take a mountain lion, there's like videos of mountain lions taking down moose, just getting on its back and just like gnawing its neck until it drops, dude. Like gnarly animals, man. Again, and you just think about nature in its fullest, right? Like, and I guess we anthropomorphize when you like make a bear look like Winnie the Pooh and make it nice, and then we just get these associations with animals. Like,
I went to a festival with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Right. But you see people like, and you take like the PETA and you take just all these animal activists, which I'm completely for. I think the mistreatment of animals is terrible, and I don't agree with like zoos and things like that at all. I think it's terrible, but at the same time, I just think we have a very skewed idea of what these animals are and how they tick, and how closely related we are to them, and how like we joked about it, I think, on the podcast, about like we're like 1 20-day blackout from eating each other.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From just like you turn that generator on day 23. Like you're asking to get mauled by a mob.
We lost power a few weeks ago with the heat that we had. I mean, it was like 8 hours, and I was already scoping my neighbors. I'm like, I see bacon right there.
It is amazing. I guess hunger and like lack of comfort can do to anybody and anything. And they've done experiments on this kind of stuff, man. And just we're weird animals, man. Like, you know that what was the Stanford prison experiment? You ever heard about that?
Dude, that's the Lucifer effect. That's that book I was reading.
Yeah, man.
I can't get out. It's phenomenal.
It's terrifying. I mean, it's
terrifying.
You know, so for anybody listening that doesn't know, they took a bunch of college kids. This professor of psychology decided, you want to do an experiment to assess like how like power works, essentially, you know, and he decided what better way than to like mimic like a prison, you know, so you take prisoners and then you take prison guards, and you know, obviously there's a huge power ratio going on there. And so he just picked a random subset of students to be, you know, prisoners, and a random subset of students to be prison guards, and put them in and just explained to them, like, we're just going to like occupy and do like a demo of what it would be.
They were paid?
Yep, they were paid. They were compensated for doing it. And like, they ended up having to shut the experiment down. I think it was slated to go for like a month or like a couple weeks.
Yeah, it was just a couple weeks.
And they had to shut it down within days because all the prison guards were abusing the prisoners. And these are just students that have no.
That's the Lucifer effect.
Yeah,
that's that
man.
book I started. And you were asking me about it. And I'm like, it's dark. Like, it's absolutely dark. Malcolm Gladwell, who I love. I love his book. I think he's got a podcast, The Revolutionist Theory, or something like that. Just really, really good topics, not unlike this. And he says, look, it's dark. He goes, but this is a must read. You have to understand what humans are capable of. And it's weird. We talked about how we learned how to go from quad to biped, and then we created tools and we learned how to hunt. Well, how quickly we've lost that skill. I wonder, again, if we lost, would you and I know how to live off the land? Could you live off the land?
No.
I mean, but we're only how many years removed from that?
Yeah. It's relative, though. I mean, I guess.
If we had to.
If we had to, yeah. I mean, again, that's the beauty of humans. I think this is like kind of one of the biggest takeaways of, I think, what we do and like what our ideas are, is that like humans are adaptable anywhere you put them, right? I mean, that you figure it out, and we live in such an intense social situation now that the stress of life, like, I think sometimes we forget that, right? I think having like the foresight to go like, alls we've ever done is adapted against very, very hard things. I mean, you're in 2018, if you're alive, like, you're the remnants of just like hundreds of thousands of years of struggle that have led to this point, right? And that's all it is. That's all it's ever been. Like, there was never like a easy or hard road. You never had to choose, right? Like, in 2018, you have to actively pursue things that are hard and uncomfortable, and that actually makes you better, right? I'm reading a book all about the gut right now, and they were just talking about, you know, the discovery of cortisol and how it's a very recent thing. Like, it was recently discovered in like the mid 1950s and associated to stress, right? And then obviously, as they deepen that research, they realize like there's like bad stress, where, you know, it keeps, you know, chronic stress where cortisol's always up and it's wreaking havoc on your physiology. But there's also eustress, where, you know, you incrementally and intelligently stress and rest. Right, so you stress.
I thrive in it. I think cortisol keeps me alive.
100%. Well, you rest, right? So like with these athletes, we got a bunch of really high level athletes, pro, collegiate, you know, semi-pro. All these people just really trying to dial in and get to that next level. And I mean, these guys go. Whether they're either training or skating or watching film or thinking about the gym, or, you know what I mean? It's just like a nonstop thing. So when you're in that state of physical stress, like, you have to rest to actually get the improvement, right? Whereas we once thought no pain, no gain. You know, it couldn't be further from the truth, right? But it's just cool to think about, like, it's only been like 50, 60 years of us even understanding this. It's only been like 50, 60 years of us even understanding what serotonin and dopamine is and what these things do for us and how we trigger them in a positive and negative way, and linking them to depression and all these different strange foods that can manipulate your hormone balances and lead to depression, right? So it's like, if I could just change someone's life, it's just change your diet, man. Like, change the food you eat, and I think the rest will follow.
Just for the heck of it. The heck of it. Do the exact opposite. If you're a massive meat eater, make meat your minimum macro, and just see.
Yeah, 100%.
Just to see what.
Or just like make the shift of going like, it's like my brain and body and mood are not going to level out until I stop eating way too much bread and way too much sugar and sporadically like just snacking on shit. Which is most people. It's like, if we walked into, we're right by an industrial complex where we're kind of at. If we walked in there and we found all these people's cubicles, and we started opening their drawers. How many drawers do you think would be full of like just like Snickers and Reese's? And then how many people would have like Mountain Dews on their desk while they sit in a sedentary position and work, right? And then, you know, they turn 50 and their back hurts and their knees hurt and they need a hip replacement and they're depressed and they're anxious and they're stressed and their hair's falling out, and then they just go, I don't understand why. You know, and then if you could just chronicle their history and just watch them monotonously showing up to work and sitting down for 8 hours and drinking Mountain Dew and eating Snickers, you go, well, I can tell you exactly why.
It's interesting. It's like, so we no longer, again, it's like, I think maybe there's more. Again, we've talked about sleep before. When you talk about sleep and food, I mean, just the most primal instincts to just maintain life. You know, it's like when you think about that, we no longer have to fight for food. Maybe this is such a neat generation because, again, if you've known about serotonin for like 300 years, like we're not having these conversations anymore. Like it's just known. It's like we get it. We understand neurotransmitters. We understand the gut-mind connection. So in the future, like what will be our problems then? You know, what will we stress about then? It's almost like this is such an interesting generation because we really don't have anything to stress over. Like it used to just be about sustaining life. Like we've got to produce enough to keep a roof over our head and sustain life. Little House on the Prairie, again, wasn't that long ago. You know, it's like even in the Wild West when they actually, you know, if you were a gangster and you had money and you could get women and you just get to drink and shoot people up, like the only thing that killed them was each other. And obviously really, really poor health. So is that why we're so, you know, seemingly lost today is because we no longer have to stress for shelter, water. Like we don't have to find the watering hole anymore. You know, you find a hose anywhere, you know. So since we don't have to stress for the basic...
We sell water in bottles now.
Right. And now it's the biggest pollutant in the world,
yeah.
You know, the plastic bottles. But so since we no longer have to stress for life... Is it maybe like we're lost? Like, is that why we're looking for purpose?
Well, I was going to build on that and say, I think purpose was more easily found in a simpler time.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess like there's what, 7 billion people? So there's just way too many of us, way too many variables, way too much biodiversity. And then you throw in the fact that like things are really complex now. So finding purpose is like you have to do it through like a career or through like a family or through like a hobby. And then if it's a hobby, like you still have to make money. So you have to figure out, okay, like for me to like fund my hobby, I got to go work 40 hours a week doing something I hate, you know. So there's all these added variables to living, I guess, like a full, fulfilled and purposeful life. Whereas it used to just be like, you know, the purpose of your life was to wake up and hunt and then like come back and like cook and fuck and procreate and somehow sustain and not die at the age of like 9.
Yeah, that's weird. Like our grandparents, it was still, I know my mother's side of the family, deep south, they grew up extremely poor. Like they talked about like my granddaddy when he was young, I never met him, he died in his 40s. Like walked. He would get up early in the morning. He would walk and try to do some odd jobs just to feed the family. And it's weird that that was just 50, 60 years ago. And then, but our parents that had to have been the first generation where they actually talked about like retirement, like actually creating an IRA and actually having a retirement fund, something to leave behind. Which you didn't leave anything behind except a house that fell apart.
Except like wisdom.
Yeah, right. And then what wisdom could you pass on? Feed your family?
Yeah. Well, I mean, skills. I mean, I guess like...
Blacksmith.
I guess like being like a skills tradesman. I mean, it's all tricky, man. We think about the internet, right? And like it's early 90s it came onto the scene, right? Maybe like really late 80s it was kind of in its very infancy. And then it probably wasn't until like early 2000s when it really started kind of taking off, where like the people were getting access to the World Wide Web.
Yeah, no more dial-up.
www. Right? Like, and how many opportunities that opened and how tricky it made life now, you know, and everything's so fast paced, the information overload in your brain all the time. And we're just not like biologically driven to keep up with that. So again, I think a lot of anxiety. I mean, there's never been more anxiety in the world, not even close. And I think it just comes from just too much information and lack of the ability to like, I guess, delegate that information in a positive way. It's a skill that has to be acquired. It's almost like our schools need to be like completely remodeled.
Oh yeah,
100%. Like I love the idea of teaching math and science and social studies and history and blah blah blah. But how about you teach like we should have a class that's called like real life Like, and then it's just all about navigating these tricky situations. It's like, yeah, phones are great. You can learn anything when you want, but you can also just sit there and stare at social media for 16 hours and never get anything done.
Yeah, you need to teach people now the fundamentals of the brain and how to nourish the mind and how to nourish and why rest is important and how that elicits better relationships and everything like that. Yeah, those
are delay of gratification. Like probably the biggest way to fix the world is to somehow, and I'm way too dumb to solve this problem, but somehow incentivize like delayed gratification. Because again, you think about all the things that are typically good in one's life, and it's the delayment of gratification. It's the ability to like see things like 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and make decisions based on that, not on emotions. It amazes me that we don't have any classes on emotional intelligence. You know, like you should never purchase something on the spot because you're rattled with emotion right now and you're not thinking clearly.
You ever hear of Consumers Reports?
No.
Like before, it used to be a magazine that you would go to before you made like a major purchase, whether it be an appliance or anything. You'd go to Consumers Reports, and they would just basically say, yeah, that brand of Frigidaire, is pretty darn reliable, and we have 15 people here that says it, and then you would buy it.
So it's kind of like Amazon reviews.
Right. But now, when's the last time you've read a review before you bought something?
I always do.
Do you?
Always. And I'm even starting to try to put, and it's all a learning curve. I fall prey to it all the time, and I still spontaneously purchase things. But again, it's the awareness and then building skill, right? It's kind of like reading Stoic philosophy isn't enough. Like put it into action, right? Like be the Stoic. Don't just read the Stoicism and word vomit out the same thing that they said. Like actually live that shit. So for me, what I've been trying to do is whenever I want something, I have like a notes in my notes. I'll write it in my notes, and if 3 days later it's still something I'm thinking about and want and I can afford it, then I'll buy it. So that kind of takes out that emotion that's just like I'm triggered right now. I need, and it gives me like 3 days to like actually think about like, man, like, do I really need it? Like, how much is it going to improve my life? Am I not going to care about it in 2 weeks after buying it, which is most times the case. It's like it's that buyer's like remorse almost. You buy it thinking you need it, and then you get it, and then you stop using it after a week, and it becomes another relic in your fucking way too overburdened garage.
Closet.
Yeah.
Garage. Well, what did they say? We have over 1 billion square feet of storage facilities in the country. It's like one of the largest growing businesses. So we now need garages for our garages.
There's got to be more than 1 billion too. It's got to be way over 1 billion.
It's got to.
Because you think like that Amazon building over there is like 1 million square feet.
I know, and I just saw. I was driving somewhere. We went to Pittsburgh last weekend, and I saw like a new storage facility. I remember saying that sarcastically. I'm like, yeah, well, we must need it. Because I was trying to be sarcastic, like, yeah, we actually need that. And I'm like, no, we actually do. Man, this must be, it's like, because everything that grows, it always gets worse before it gets better. That's Steven Pinker. But it's interesting. So I want to see, sometimes I don't want to live long enough, but sometimes I hope I do get to live long enough to where I just get to see in 50 years how this all plays out.
And again, obviously you're a little older than I am.
A lot.
At 24, I think if I play my cards right.
You get to 85.
Yeah. If I keep gripping the wheel with two hands.
10 and 2.
10 and 2.
Your youngsters like to go right at that, like, 6 o'clock position, 7 o'clock
it's the most
position,
comfy, man.
With the knee. Like
I'll drive the knee every once in a while.
At 6 and 6:30.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll drive the knee.
Because I'm playing with my radio and my Bluetooth, and I'm reading a book.
No, I'm focused, but it's just a reminder that I can do it. You got to keep the skill sharp just in case you get into a crunch.
Just wonder why it's interesting. That's when you talk about like actual. Knowledge that actually helps you advance life, whether that just be the way you rationalize it, the way you actually live it. Man, like that's the true fucking skill, is to teach people why the brain gets weirded out, because we're only barely removed from what it used to be like, and it almost helps us kind of rationalize, okay, just calm down, relax. We don't have to worry so much. We don't have to stress so much. We don't have to even learn so fast. Those are real skills. So maybe it's because we're not getting that type of information, but why is growth so painful? Isn't it always pain? Like everything that comes before something great always seems like it's like the fucking worst thing that's ever happened to you. It's like, I said it the other day, I don't even know half the shit I say. I just say things. And Aiden was in the gym and he actually said, what do you mean by that? Because I said, you'll always experience turbulence before you experience growth. And he was like 3 minutes later, he's like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I only know what I mean by that. I go, it just seems like because it requires change. Right, so for something to grow, that means something's been modified. That means the landscape's just a little bit different. There's a little bit of a shape shift. So whether it's just an emotional shift, which means it's not the norm, which means it's unknown, which means it's new, which means it's turbulent. It's like whether that's excitement or whether that's nervousness, whether that's anxiety, but then how you deal with it is what makes us more conscientious, more bigger thinkers. So we can respect the fact that things have to get unsettled. They have to be. You have to be unsecure. You almost have to experience hell before you can ever experience heaven. So growth is always painful. So that's
Well, does it like? Let me try to wrap that up. Like, does it always have to be painful, or is it like based on expectation? Right? Is it the expectation of like you perceive this growth as a positive thing, but then there's all these things that get in your way to get to this idea that you have in your head, right? So, we have this idea about these group classes we're building. We want to put 100 people in there, and we make all this money. It all seems so pretty. And, like, having the, I guess, foresight to go, like, this is not going to be that easy. Can we avoid the pain by acknowledging and generating awareness by the fact that, like, if we want to get there, it's going to be a lot of struggle? And
I think 100% that's exactly the point. I think that's where... Again, I think that's where mindfulness and consciousness comes in. I think the same thing that we're obviously you just picked, you just opened that up. Yeah, we are expanding the gym. Which means there was pain. There's pain in our construction. There's dust everywhere. We were working at 20% less space in our gym, but now the wall just came down. Now it just opened us up to where we lacked 20%. We just gained 50%. But there's going to be an investment in it. Obviously, you have to fill the space, which means you have to spend. So I think 5 years ago, this exact same construction project probably might have maybe more like 8 years ago, probably would have given me an ulcer. But I think it's because we're having these conversations. I think because we're actually kind of, expanding on these ideas. That's why you and I are excited about it. Like we get the fact that we're going to have to work hard, but we see its potential. We see that there is no other way around the wall of growth but to go through it. And so we did literally go through a wall.
Yeah, and I think it's either, and you just, I guess, the original kind of thought process of you're either growing or you're dying, and like kind of keeping that in mind all the time, then there's just no other choice but to keep growing. And again, like you said, it's kind of like a eustress, right? Like a eustress doesn't feel good. It's like training, like doing, a 20-second sprint followed by a 40-second coast on an airdyne for 10 rounds is the single hardest, most miserable thing you'll ever do in your life. Yeah. But like the reward on the other side is like better endurance, a stronger heart, increase in growth hormone, and a better sense of mood because you get all these neurotransmitters dumping into your brain and making you feel high naturally, right? So like if you've never done it, and you've never really kind of pushed yourself, then it's gonna suck and you're probably gonna quit. But if you've been doing that for years and years and you just really understand, and I think that's the difference between people that succeed in long-term training and people that don't, is like generating that awareness that this is a lifelong thing. I'm doing this because it's gonna make me feel good. So you show up and you go, I feel like shit. I'm gonna get through this, and when I leave here, I'm gonna feel great. And we were talking about this the other day, because we're so busy right now that you and I have both, I guess, not been training the way we once were, which is, that's part of growth, right? So like, having that foresight to get better, you do have to struggle. And struggle doesn't have to be, I guess, painful in like a negative way. I guess it can be painful in a positive way. I guess pain can sometimes be positive, right? Like the pain of getting through that set, and then the reward of going like, I did that shit. I got that shit done, So it is. I guess it's all going inward. It always comes down to going inward, right? Like, you can actually control the way your brain perceives the world, but you can't control the way the world perceives everything else. I mean, the world is the way it is, and there's no sense in trying to control it. It's just things happen, and that's that. But what you can control is the way you react to them. And I just love that. I love that about what we're creating. I love that about where I left, because the job I was in before, we would have never had a conversation like this. So it's kind of like a prerequisite to becoming in flow. It's like your mind has to be there, and we've seen a few people that have come to our doors that just aren't ready for what we're trying to do. And again, it's people walk through our door and we go, the training's just one basket that we're trying to fill in your life. there's so many more that need to be filled, and we're going to do our best to try to like show you those and facilitate the growth of those other baskets. And then, like we kind of touched on, we're launching these classes September 1st.
Yeah, tell us about these classes a little bit there, Coach.
Yeah, so we expanded into another, almost 1,000 square feet of space. Now it's all open concept, and we're going to take our ideas and our training service and our 30 plus years of coaching, and we're going to try to build into a group setting that is, I came from some boot camp backgrounds, and I love the idea. I love the tribe that it creates. I love the community it creates, and I love, I guguess, the scalability of it and the ability to, I guess, cater to more people. What I don't like is that they get sloppy and you put people in bad positions. And I came from I've been to a lot of, I'm not going to, shit on anybody's boot camp. But, if you bring in 20 people that have no exercise experience and you have them doing kettlebell swings, like, get the fuck out. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to kill them. Like, and it sucks because you're not going to kill them in one session. It's going to be like 6 years down the road when their thoracolumbar junction is no longer there and they need a back fusion because they've been shearing their spine for the last 7 years doing poor formed kettlebell swings without bracing, right? So what we want to do is we want to scale to that bigger open concept of being able to touch more people and help more people, but we want to do it in a safe, collective, amazing, global way. So hence the Flow 360, so 360 approach, right? Dynamic, global, whatever word you want to use there. Flow, I guess, encompasses our business, what we try to do, which is always, trying to create this idea of a flow state where you're total immersion. And then I guess it just kind of fits because we're going to flow through the workouts. Yeah. So we're going to kind of combine, endurance, mobility, and strength work all into one 45-minute session to cater to everybody's physical requirements. And we're going to do it in a very safe, effective way. And we're going to translate our very successful semi-private training service into a class. And like I said, we're going to launch September 1st. We're going to be, if anybody's listening and wants to share this up, we're going to be opening registration actually this Monday. I think it's like the
16th,
the
17th,
16th,
something like that.
Yeah, so July 16th. So first 20 people will have a $100 off discount for their first month. So pretty cool stuff. But I think it's definitely an exciting time.
Well, I think we have a responsibility. You and I have talked about building our farm and moving away and just being with like-minded people and not having to deal with the city unless we got to go to Costco and pick up some shit. And I know you knew this, but I reminded you. I'm like, well, the world is full of darkness. In other words, we could refer to darkness whatever you want. I don't mean it to be evil or anything like that, but it's it's
lost people.
People that again are still stressed out about like having to find a new job rather than being excited about the new opportunities and the new possibilities and the new people and maybe a new boss looking at them for a new skill. They don't always see it that way, but we have to remain in the world because it only takes a little bit of light to balance out a lot of darkness, okay? So if we want to use numbers, 5% light can balance out 95% darkness. So it's as much as we want to pull the covers over our head and just build an underground, commune, we have to be out in the world. So what I'm hoping with this, even this build out of our gym, which it's a lot more than just taking down a wall. It's a lot more, the approach that we're trying to take. We've really never even really spent a lot of time talking about, the money and the monetary aspect of it. We've spent a lot of time, how do we model the space? How do we make a usable space that can actually give people exactly what they need? Again, keeping them safe. And I'm just hoping our clients see, the risk, what they would refer to as a risk, I call it, is just natural tendencies. You know what I mean? These are things I have to do. If I'm not growing, I'm dying, right? So I hope they see that it doesn't have to be trying something new and shape shifting what you used. I used to be all about powerlifting. Okay, and if we weren't deadlifting, pulling a truck and pressing a log overhead with bad form, like, you just weren't getting it done, and so you have to continue to say, well, I don't know everything. I don't know what's best for my business. I don't know what's best for all of my clients. So you bring in you and you got Coach Dan and you listen, that's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Do double the listening than you do talking. So I just hope our clients are excited about what they'll see perceived risk that we're willing to take. It's an adjustment of, oh, well, I thought you guys were all about this. Well, we were. But now we're about this.
Well, and it's not even that. it's again like we're the theory behind the class is to kind of take what we already do, and that's why we're going to be different, right? Like I like I said, I used to run a boot camp, and I kind of know what that world is. I've been to the fit bodies, I've worked in them, I've been all around to them, and again, it's a lot of the time I don't know if it's just a lot of people I guess put people in place that I don't think care and execute their vision, right? I think that's a big problem with growth, right? Is like you almost have to give somebody a stake in the company to get them as involved and serious about it. You know, you can't just be like, hey, here's $30 an hour, go teach my class. Like their level of care is just going to diminish. So as you scale and grow, by nature, you're going to get some of the diminish of your vision, like your original vision, right? Which may happen to us at some point, you know, and I'm hoping, and we've talked a lot about this. I mean, we've put way too much thought into this in a good way, but like how we can create like a guidebook so that anybody can walk in and execute our vision, and we don't lose that sense of like care for the clients in those classes. Because again, when you start putting 16, 20 people in a class, it's very easy to get neglected. And then for me, it's all about, like, I understand the risks of poor movement. And I think we understand that better than anybody. Like, I think that's why we're successful where we're located. Like, the level that we put into, like, understanding biomechanics and understanding the best possible way to achieve whatever result you want physically, mentally, like we're there and we're immersed in it and we're doing it ourselves, and then we're passing it on to people. And like, again, like the attention to detail out on the floor, like Coach Dan is arguably the greatest strength coach I've ever seen or met in my life. And I've met a ton of them, because the dude his attention to detail and the little things. And at the end of the day, like when you're dealing with pro athletes, like that's the difference. Like it's the quarter-inch difference. It's the 0.001% increase in performance that takes you from juniors to pro. That takes you from making $40,000 a year to $10 million a year, right? That's like the level that a lot of these people are working at. And I think taking that in to these group classes is going to be a challenging but very cool thing, because I don't know that there's anybody doing it. You know, there's a lot of group fitness out there, but it's sloppy, man, and I think why I'm so excited about it is I really think we can do it with the same standards that we've taken into our semi-private training classes. And again, what that's going to mean is going to mean that you're not going to be able to do as many movements. Like you're just not. You can't be doing barbell training sessions with people that have never done a bodyweight squat. It's delusional.
And nor do they need it.
No, you don't need it.
You don't need a barbell in your hand until you've learned how to sit comfortably.
You arguably don't ever need a barbell in your hand, unless like your goal is to just keep getting stronger.
I watched a TED Talk on that. It was really cool. I should have forwarded it to you. It was only like 13 minutes. It was awesome, about neuroscientists talking about like the hippocampus and just about how the larger it grows, the less disease, the less dementia, the less Alzheimer's, the less diabetes that can even happen. She says we can't stop it. We can delay it though, and you might delay it long enough to actually live a long, great life. And it's just as simple as that. Just getting up out of your desk chair and doing heterolateral movement for 5 minutes and laughing a little bit while you do it, and then sit back down at your desk. And she talked about how that if you could just do that every day, how that just elicited a whole new change in hippocampus, which is going to be a whole new change in just how your body distributes thoughts, how your brain distributes ideas, how your brain distributes concepts. So you start to find more joy, and you create more swagger in your day. And it's really neat. It's like, it really is that simple. It really is that simple. But, I'm thankful that we didn't just assume something like this group training was going to be simple. It was well thought out, and we went back and forth on it many, many times. But
and you can make it, again, you can, like we could fill that class up and just, fuck people up with burpees and kettlebell swings, and they're probably going to lose weight, which is great, which is why most people get involved anyway. So you can see success and you can grow and you can make a shit ton of money. But like you're starting to see it now, like CrossFit's been around for a little over a decade now, or right around there. And that was kind of the original group setting, like group classes. I guess you've always had like the Jane Fondas and the step classes and the Richard Simmons kind of stuff, but you really started seeing like kettlebells and barbells and all this stuff enter into the scene of group training. And now you're starting to see all this research coming up of people being like getting osteoarthritis from these classes, from long-term use. Because again, your body is really, really good, and I think this is like where I would pin my expertise in biomechanics and like injury, right? Like that's pretty much what I do here. I do movement. So like understanding like how the body compensates for the inability to perform a movement. And it doesn't like you won't know how poor you are at moving until I take you through a complex movement screening. And you could have been deadlifting and doing all this. So we see it all the time. We get people that come in that are weekend warriors, and we take them to a movement screening and we go, holy shit, like you're 6 years out from a hip replacement. Like
you got like 8 degrees internal
like
rotation.
You've been doing like a deadlift with way too much extension in your back. Like, does your back ever? Well, now that you say, like my back hurts like every day. Like,
but it's not that bad.
Like living with pain is not normal. But we've gone so far down this rabbit hole that like things like diabetes, things like chronic pain, things like autoimmune issues, we've just accepted as like, now
it's the norm.
When I eat, I just have diarrhea. Right. It's like, no, man, like that's not how it's supposed to be. So again, trying to take this thing that's already pinned as a very, I guess, successful model for our industry, which is group training. It's a cool concept because again, anytime you can reach more people, it's better, right? Mm-hmm. You can affect more people, you can get more results for people, and you can spread your community. But at the same time, like I don't want to do that on the merit of like giving people osteoarthritis in the next 5 to 10 years. I want to do it in a very safe, kind of exactly like we do in our semi-private training. Like we bring people in, we take them through movement screenings, and I don't give a shit what you've been doing. Like this is where you're actually at. Like we're going to be doing breathing exercises and body weight movements and reset drills for the next month, and we're going to see if we can even get you into a neutral position to even load you. And then we'll talk about doing your barbell squats and preparing for your powerlifting meet. Unless you want to go keep shearing your back and then get a back replacement in 5-10 years and screw your life up.
Even Coach Dan, like you said, one of the best lifters I've ever seen, one of the strongest guys I've ever seen, completely drug-free. And he even said, he goes, you know what? He goes, because he's a competitive powerlifter. The guy's excellent. But he said, yeah, I think I'm done with the wide stance squats. He goes, I want to be able to use my hips in 10 years. And I have a little bit of like my hips get sore a little bit. And I just wonder if it was the 5 and 6 years of the wide squat with my squat briefs on with, 1.5 times more weight on the bar than I should have had that I'm now actually experiencing that from. So
yeah. And even with him, I was talking with Luke about it yesterday when I was training him, and he was just talking about Dan, like, powerlifting and all this different stuff, and I was just explaining to him like the typical powerlifting community, like the dozen donut buying, Big Mac eating, just hardcore grungy setting of like really not like prioritizing your health, like you're just prioritizing strength, right? Which is, I guess, if that's what makes you tick, that's cool. But Dan, because I guess I'm assuming, and that's all I can do here, is that coaching, like by coaching all these different people, all these different general pop, all these pro athletes, all these powerlifters, like he's kind of seen like how to dynamically, I guess, create a program that not only gets you stronger, because he's a powerlifter, that's the name of the game, but also like you see Dan doing like Turkish get-ups and hip transfers and soft tissue work and PRI reset breathing drills and spending 30 minutes just doing deep warm-ups. So he's kind of like combining this grungy hardcore lifting with all this accessory work, and that's the important thing, right? Like that's fun. It's fun to go lift 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week hard, but like what are you doing when you're done lifting? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Are you drinking water? Are you taking ice baths? Like what are you doing to accelerate that recovery? Because otherwise in 2 days there's going to be diminishing returns, and you're gonna burn out. So it is cool, man. It's an exciting time. We said we were going to do 30 minutes on this podcast today, and we spent the first 30 talking shit.
but it's growth, and sometimes even to grow, you got to step back, right? You could be a 500-pound deadlifter that comes in here and you don't deadlift for 6 months, or you might be a really intelligent person who has your brain or your concept of something you think completely rewired. But again, what doesn't grow dies, if you ask me. So it's we're hoping just to get the point across. I think that you just be open to the things that you don't understand, and then that starts with us. We put ourselves in uncomfortable situations every single day.
Over and over.
We've quit the guaranteed jobs. I quit the 401k. I cashed in all my chips, and it seems like. I wonder what took me so long to get started. Yeah, man,
I love this idea of like there's no price that you can put on owning yourself, and like for me again, it's always been bet on yourself, man, and like if instead of just like always thinking about, again, like being intelligent with money is a smart thing to do, but it kind of being in this mindset of like, not where can I cut costs? How can I make more money? How can I like impact more people? How can I grow this business? And again, it's a never ending job. Like I was just talking to Caitlin last night. Like I think I've worked like 100 hours this week. Like just market research, building out, like we're doing everything ourselves. Like I'm building websites, I'm building like lead pages, Facebook ads. I've taught myself how to do Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere Pro video editing, and just like all these little skills that I'm not like an expert in any of them, but I'm definitely like proficient enough to like give you something if you need it. It's not going to be like, I'm not going to charge you what an average graphic designer charges. And I would probably never do it for anybody as a job, but like for my own business or our own business, like it's what you got to do, man. You make it work. But at the end of the day, it's like 100 hours today for the pay. Like anybody would probably look at that and go like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm making $2 an hour right now.
Yeah, like that's like what it comes out to when you break it down. But at the same time, it's like, 100 hours this week, 90 hours next week, 70 hours the next week, and then 7 years from now I'm working 10 hours.
17.
10 hours,
right.
20 hours,
Yeah.
So you're laying this foundation. But at the end of the day, it's fun, man. I was just listening to some Gary Vee yesterday about this. It's like, he's like, people don't understand how much fun I have working 18-hour days. He's like, they look at me and they're like, man, that guy works way too much. I'm like, no, I do it because I love it. And if you don't, then you're fucked.
Yeah.
And for me, I guess I love and hate it. Like it's very rewarding work. But I guess I have a lot of other things that distract. Like we're both parents. Like I have a kid. I have relationships. So I have all these other baskets that need to be filled. So again, like 100-hour weeks every week is a very unsustainable model. But again, temporarily working, like if we slated our hours, and this is how I kind of think about it, and I've done some road maps of this years ago, where it's like, you think 40-hour work weeks, which if you actually average out and you take away people's vacation time, because people don't take all their vacation time, people work overtime, people work weekends, the average work hour comes out to about 47 hours for the average individual, right? So 47 hours for 50 years, 50 years, and then you add that number up. And then you take that same idea and you add, say like 70-hour weeks for 6 years, 50-hour weeks for 4 years. And then from there you go 30-hour weeks for 6 years, and then 10-hour weeks for 25 years. You still end up with a way lower number than you do at that steady rate, right? So for me, it's kind of like I'm 24. Like I got a good 10 years of just long weeks of just grinding and getting things off the ground and building them and putting them in place. And again, it's the level of care. Like me, you, and Dan are in the trenches. Like this is our business. Like we all own this thing, and the success is predicated on what we do about it. So it's fun.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday. Yeah.
I actually just stopped working Sundays a couple weeks ago.
I know. I'm glad for that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. So it's but yeah, I was thinking about it because I've probably put 30 plus hours in the last 5 days into just like computer work,
Your excitement is my excitement.
Yeah, man, it's fun. We're excited.
I couldn't be doing the things in my life like right now, like again, spending more time with my family and being more present in the things I do without guys like you.
Vice versa, man. Absolutely.
It's perfect. So so growth does not have to be painful. It's only pain if you perceive it as such.
Yeah, which we've both done for a long time, I think.
So I'd rather call pain turbulence, and I think if you're doing the right things on a daily basis, again, you're trying to move, you're trying to exercise, you're trying to eat well, you're staying hydrated, you're reading every once in a while, listen to a podcast. I think you can trust the turbulence. Okay, I think you can trust a little bit of angst. It doesn't have to be anxiety, or can it be excitement? So
it's like a pilot that actually knows what he's doing when he hits turbulence versus some guy that has no idea, like. The guy that has no idea what he's doing is the guy that's just eating shit and just like reacting. Whereas the actual professional pilot that hits the turbulence, if you hit turbulence in a plane, you're just like, yes, it's turbulence. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny. They remember before they had like flight simulators. Like, you want to know how they learned how to fly? Well, they just went up. Yeah. And they said like in World War, I think it was World War I or World War II, they were losing on average of 50% of their pilots.
Just to
because they never experienced. You can talk about turbulence, but you can't train turbulence. Okay, so when they created a flight simulator, now the average like pilots don't die anymore, not even in war.
Ever.
Like it's like it doesn't happen. And so I think that's what we have, a very large responsibility in this generation to essentially read the books from the people who built the simulators. Okay, the greatest role models in life were the people just before us. Okay, those are our teachers, unless it's Stoic philosophy that was several hundred years ago. But
there's always been people deep into history that have been like pioneers and like forward-thinking humans, and it's again with the expansion of information. Now it's something that like like you said, it's our right, and it should be our responsibility.
A duty. It's a duty.
It is a duty to.
You cannot be ignorant these days,
Yeah.
and so I mean, again, grow or die. But but if you're not experiencing any turbulence in your life, like you need to wake up and you need to do something drastic, because life is also extremely short.
Absolutely, and it's to create, like Jordan Peterson talks about, to create, I guess, a utopia. It empower the individual. Like stop being concerned with what person A and person B are doing, and look at yourself. Mm-hmm. Spend some time in a room with no music, with no TV, with no phone, with
Hardest
nothing.
thing for people to do.
So
is
hard,
to sit
man.
in silence.
Sit in silence and just confront your problems,
Yeah.
and then like me. I mean, I could spend the next hour telling you all the things I suck at.
Oh yeah.
But like me, I'm
pro.
very grateful that I've taken the time to learn those things. I've learned what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I need to work on, what I'm never going to get better at. What I should avoid, what I should immerse myself in. What makes me tick, what makes me frustrated. And sitting down and really taking that I guess mental picture of yourself and who you are and what you are can I guess give you the motivation to go change your life. And I love his view, Jordan Peterson's view on that. It's just like all these people fucking complaining when their lives aren't in order. It's like, how many of these people would I walk into their bedrooms and it's just a nightmare?
I know. I read the Tim Ferriss podcast I read his blog a couple of days ago, and it was the same thing. Like, it was his 5 points to like owning the day, and I'm like, oh man, this is like, what's next? And it was the same shit. The guy, number one, he goes, make your bed, drink a glass of water, do 5 reps of something, up to 10 reps, and I'm like, that's it. Like I downloaded this, I gave you my email address, and like I went right to and that's it. And I'm like, because that's all it takes.
Yeah.
That is
simple. That was like my post I made. I think I saw you read. It's like the basics. The non-negotiables. And in training, it's no different, right? Like your squat, hinge, push, pull patterns, and ability to brace and ability to breathe are all the basics. And you learn those, and they should always be in your program. And when you get bored and you're really, really, really masterful at those things, then we can play around with some more dynamic things. But we're never going to leave those things behind. They're always there. So getting up in the morning and always drinking that glass of water and always making your bed, like those are the habits, the routines that you need to implement as non-negotiables. Just always, like this autopilot. Like I'm becoming, as we get busier, man, I'm realizing a lot of things. Like I want to autopilot my meals. I want to autopilot my exact morning routine. Mm-hmm. And so, because decision fatigue, man, we make decisions all day.
Yeah, getting out of bed's a non-decision for me.
Yeah.
Sleeping in is a decision, and I don't make that decision.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, I can't.
There's people waiting for you on the other side.
Absolutely. I've never, ever, ever found a pot of gold under my covers.
No.
Ever.
No, but it is. It's so attractive, man. I will say on air that is my biggest struggle, is getting up in the morning. And again, I can't think of the guy's name. Why We Sleep, the author of Why We Sleep. Matthew Walker, maybe. Yep. Something like that, I want to say. But he talks about like how we're genetically predisposed to either being morning or like morning people or evening people, right? And then a lot of it's like a 20-20 split there, like a 20-30 split, and the rest is like you're in the middle of that. Like you're kind of a morning person but not really, and kind of a night person but not really. And I can just feel that my body just wants to stay up till like midnight, 1 in the morning, and just do things. And then
he talks about your age, like you like it's actually the way. Yeah. Like you shouldn't be coming into work till 9
at all.
But then we ask you to come in at 5:30.
Yeah, and it's just they're sacrifices for sure. But it's just Man, that is my demon. So there you guys go. I'll leave you with my demon, and I hope you can assess your own.
Just so
demon.
you guys know, I have no weaknesses. So
yeah, and Ben still is floating. Just in case you know, and his butt is actually
starting to shape.
The butt cheese is almost touching the ground.
But not that I could feel it.
Yeah,
my butt cheese would actually stop a couple inches.
What do you do to like come back to the ground? Is there like do you have to think it or press a button or like? How does that work?
Boy, that's a good question.
Or have you just been floating for
I guess that'll be the next podcast. I don't even know if I learned how to walk anymore.
Yeah,
I might go back to being quad.
Be a quad. You're like gonna have to do handstands.
I'm a gorilla.
I'm biped, but
I can go 40 miles an hour through the trees.
I'm an inverted biped now. That's what we've evolved to be.
I wonder if would I lose my brain or would I lose some other capability that I have?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
Maybe the next podcast.
You got anything you want to leave them with here?
Thank you for listening and thank you for the talk.
Yeah, I love how we said we were going to do the quick 20.
Well,
we're at an hour. We're at an hour.
An hour? Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first 20.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see you guys soon, and big things coming. So stay tuned and peace. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Just want to give a quick shout to our sponsor, the Inflow Wellness Academy, located in Plymouth, Michigan. Make sure you check them out at inflowacademy.com, on Facebook and YouTube at Inflow Wellness Academy, and Instagram at Inflow Academy. Mention that you're a listener of the Finding Flow podcast and receive some awesome discounts on our exceptional services over at the Inflow Wellness Academy. These services include personal training through semi-private and private. We offer yoga, massage therapy, laser therapy, group classes, just about anything you need to optimize your life. We'll guide you through nutrition. We'll guide you through supplementation. We'll help you build a strong mind and help you achieve a better state of flow on the day-to-day basis. So make sure you check them out. And once again, thanks for tuning in to the Finding Flow podcast.